Welcome to Raving Ryan. I'm your host, Ryan Anastasio. Today I have a very special guest, the Attorney General of Connecticut, George Jepsen. Mr. Attorney General, how are you?
Good to be here.
Prior to being elected in 2010 as Attorney General, you served as a state senator and worked as a lawyer in private practice. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey to becoming Attorney General and some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, I became interested in government and politics when I was about your age, actually, in middle school. And it was the 60s and early 70s. And there's the war in Vietnam going on, and civil rights movement, women's movement, environmental protection. And so I became very interested in the issues of the day. So that led me to becoming involved in campaigns because it's, all these good ideas translate themselves into public policy through the political process. And so so I went to law school knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer, but I also wanted to have a career in public service. And I've got lucky. I got the opportunity to run for the state legislature shortly after I graduated from law school, only a couple of years later. And so I built from there.
Yeah, and some of the responsibilities of the Connecticut Attorney General are to serve as a legal counsel to all state agencies and to represent the people of Connecticut in the broader public interest. This is a job with lots of responsibilities, and it can be complicated sometimes. Can you tell us a little bit more about the job and what it entails?
Well, we have 200 lawyers, which would make it easily the largest law firm, if you want to look at it that way, in the state, and an annual budget of about $30 million. We have 15 different departments, things like consumer protection, environmental protection, financial services, education, child protection, and so we handle, if you can believe, about 54,000 individual cases per year, and most of the time we're out there enforcing the laws of the state of Connecticut or representing the state of Connecticut when the state gets sued by somebody. Well, as the state gets sued, well, it could be a state employee alleges that they were wrongfully laid off. It could be a slip and fall in a state park. It could be any one of a number. It could be the allegation that a corrections officer uses too much force with an inmate. So 99% of the work is really the guts of state government, making state government work effectively. And to me, it's really important that nuts and bolts part of the job is done right. But as you point out, you're also entitled as a state attorney general, and this goes back hundreds of years to the King's England, and under the informal powers of the office, you're entitled to be out there and be an advocate for the broader state interests, and that is what allows an attorney general like myself to become involved on lots of these national issues, whether it's banking foreclosures or the Volkswagen fiasco with their emission standards. Right now, for example, Connecticut is leading a 41-state investigation into pervasive price fixing in the generic drug market. So the job is very broad and really fascinating.
And how do you work with over 200 lawyers? Is it hard to communicate with them all the time sometimes?
Well, we have a kind of a pyramid, and I have underneath me, I have one deputy who operationally runs the place day to day, and under him are 4 associate attorneys general, and I'll talk about them in 1 second. Then we have 15 department heads. Some departments are small with 2 or 3 lawyers, but some are very large. Our child protection department is 38 lawyers. So the individual line lawyers report up through their department head. And then those 4 associate attorneys general, there's one who handles all litigation, one who handles all appeals and appellate work. If you lose at the trial court level, you can appeal up towards, hopefully get up to the Connecticut Supreme Court. And then we have an associate for professional development, and then one for special projects. And so when something comes up that's 99% of the time, your average case is handled at the department head level in a consultation with the assistant attorney general. The stuff that's above their pay grade gets sent up the chain of command, and so my deputy, those 4 associates, and I also have a special counsel. They meet every week and review the cases that need action from the executive level here, and they make a recommendation to me.
Yeah, and recently many state attorney generals have filed lawsuits against President Trump. In January, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration calling the travel ban unconstitutional. Can you tell me a little bit how about how you and other state attorney generals are standing up to the Trump administration?
Well, I want to be clear. We're not looking to reflexively oppose everything he does, and we shouldn't. But when we believe he is acting in violation either of the U.S. Constitution or of federal law, then it's our responsibility to take legal action. And there's a kind of a continuum out there. There's some areas where state attorneys general, for example, in our environmental laws, Clean Air, Clean Water Acts, state attorneys general are actually deputized to enforce those laws on the ground on behalf of the federal government. So it's a federal law, but state attorneys general, separately from the EPA, have enforcement power as well. So if that's an area where a state attorney general could easily have standing because written in the federal laws that we do the enforcement. At the other end of the continuum are issues that are pure public policy, where I might profoundly disagree with what Trump is doing, but it's really just a matter of public policy. An example of that might be, although we're trying to work on some legal actions, is the defunding of Planned Parenthood. But it's difficult to see where we get the legal hook to oppose him in court. In the middle, there are some issues like the travel ban, where, for example, I don't have any criminal jurisdiction. So to the extent that the travel ban involves violations of criminal statutes, I personally don't have criminal jurisdiction, but other state attorneys general may have it. Also, in Connecticut, we don't have an international airport. And so we had trouble developing facts on the ground where we could show that Connecticut, as a state, was harmed by the travel ban. So I was unable to intervene directly to support Ferguson and be part of the lawsuit. So instead, states like mine, that are positioned like mine, we filed what's called an amicus brief, where it's called a friend of the court brief, where we offer legal arguments in support of one side or the other. And in this case, obviously, it was to support the Washington State's direct legal action.
Yeah, and how do you decide whether to step in or to sit on the side and go along with another case like you did with the Washington case?
Yeah, that's where your skills and experience as a lawyer come in, and your understanding of the law comes in. You don't want to make the wrong decision. You file a court case, and the court throws your case out because you don't have standing to file that lawsuit. You do that, you're handing the Trump administration a cheap and easy win. And so the Democratic attorneys general, we have a weekly phone call with one another, and we discuss the issues that we see coming down the pike, and decide which state is going to work to be the lead on it, and who else is going to help on it. I also want to point out that while on a lot of the Trump stuff, obviously the Democratic attorneys general are on one side and the Republican attorneys general may be on the other side, there's a whole lot of major issues where we work very well together with I worked with my Republican colleagues on a lot of national issues on a bipartisan basis, and we're very different in that respect from the U.S. Congress and lots of partisan state legislatures where Republicans and Democrats don't do a good job of working with one another. We do.
Yeah, and President Trump's budget that he has put out has focused more on defense and less on issues such as education and the environment. You recently said that Connecticut has some of the worst air in the country. You have said that you will be leading the environmental challenge for the attorney generals on President Trump. How will you challenge the president on environmental issues, and will you make sure things such as the Clean Power Plan stay in place?
Well, we're going to do our best. One example is that Connecticut, we have some of the worst air in the country, not because we don't do a good job at the state level, it's because we're downwind from virtually every other state in the country, so that whatever they're putting in a power plant in Georgia or West or Pennsylvania or Ohio or Indiana today, we're going to be breathing tomorrow. And so one of the things that we do is to try and force the Environmental Protection Agency to fully enforce the federal laws to try and reduce the amount of coal burning power plants is the biggest single source of pollution. Another area is where Connecticut, working with California, we're leading a number of states opposing a Trump effort to dial back and Obama-led emission standards and mileage standards for trucks. Obviously if trucks don't need to attain mileage standards, it means more pollution. So that's each one of these has a different legal angle that we try and approach, and it's the good lawyering that allows us, or is essential to make the best possible legal case.
Yeah, and have you presented any cases on the environmental issues against the Trump administration?
On those, we filed a case on the truck mileage standards. Yes.
And you expect anything to be done about that?
These things can take weeks and months and even years.
And President Trump recently fired the director of the FBI, James Comey, under the suggestion of Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. This came as a surprise to various lawmakers and to the American people. What do you make of the firing of James Comey as the director of the FBI?
Well, I think we'll learn a lot more in the coming weeks and months, but Trump himself has contradicted his own spokespeople like Sean Spicer and Kellyanne Conway, and it appears that in fact the firing was related to Comey's insistence on a strong inquiry into the Russia hacking, into the interference with the U.S. election last year, and it's just you have to go back to the Watergate scandal where Nixon fired Archibald Cox to find this level of interference, inappropriate interference in a legal investigation. So we'll see how it unfolds.
So do you think this can be something as serious as Watergate unfolding right now?
It certainly can be. It's certainly not there yet. But it's public officials need to be very careful about interfering with ongoing legal investigations, and there comes a point where it can become illegal itself, whatever they're doing.
And like I just said, the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein made the recommendation to President Trump. And the Department of Justice is headed by Jeff Sessions right now. He's recused himself from the investigation. But have you worked with either the new Attorney General or Deputy Attorney General right now, and what do you think of how they are doing?
I've met Jeff Sessions, but I've not worked with him. I just disagree. We'll see about Rosenstein. He's so new to the job. A lot's going to depend on how he reacts to the Comey firing, because the Russia investigation now, with Sessions recused from it, is very much in his lap. And so we'll see in the coming weeks or months how he handles that. So jury's out on him. He does have a very good reputation as an excellent prosecutor. So we'll see about him. Sessions and I just profoundly disagree on a whole series of issues, especially he's a cultural conservative. I'm not. He wants stricter drug sentencing, for example, and I think that moves us in the wrong direction. I think that he's insensitive on things like civil rights in many respects. So he and I just come from profoundly different worldviews, and I respect it, but I don't necessarily like it.
Yeah, and are you open to working with Sessions on some issues?
I'm really very strongly believe that all of us in public life need to look for opportunities to build institutions, not tear them down. And so I was majority leader of the Connecticut State Senate for 6 years, and I used to remark that you need to preserve, even if you disagree with somebody 95% of the time, you need to preserve the working relationship and the personal relationship with them, so that the 5 or 10 or 15% of the time you can agree on something can be turned into constructive public policy. And so to me, you truly try to not make things personal and going after people, and so that you can look for opportunities to work together.
Yeah, and how often do you work with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney General?
Well, we, at any given time, can have several investigations going on where we're in a cooperative, we're working cooperatively. It could be an investigation about manipulating drug prices. It could be, financial services. We just finished investigating, working with the Justice Department and the EPA in investigations into Volkswagen cheating on emissions testing. So at any given time, we have cooperative investigations, and sometimes they go on for years at a time.
Yeah, and Connecticut has many financial problems right now. In the past few years, the state has had to make many budget cuts to many state agencies and to towns that get state aid. The Attorney General's office has around 200 lawyers, as you just said, that are working continuously on thousands of cases. Have Connecticut's financial problems adversely impacted the Attorney General's ability to staff lawyers and other workers?
That's a very good question. We've done better on the budget. We've had our budget cut, but not as much as most agencies, and it's because we can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that it's penny wise, pound foolish at some point to cut our budget, because we bring in so much more money than it costs to run our agency. In this fiscal year alone, we've brought in about 6 times as much as it costs to run my agency for a year in these major settlements. And if we weren't able to lawyer up for these big investigations, or if we had to farm the work out to outside law firms because we didn't have the staff, the state would lose money.
Yeah, in the budget that the governor proposed a few months ago, a lot of towns, like my hometown of Woodbridge, are losing lots of state aid. What do you make of all these towns losing all the state aid in the governor's budget that he has?
Well, that's kind of outside of the scope of I have no jurisdiction over that. Obviously that means taxes are going to go up, and towns are having to make harder choices. I just wish times were better for Connecticut, so that we didn't have to deal with these kinds of funding deficits.
Yeah, and President Trump has already begun trying to to end funding to sanctuary cities. Connecticut is home to sanctuary cities such as Hartford and New Haven. What do you make of President Trump trying to cut funding to the sanctuary cities? And do you think that we should have sanctuary cities in Connecticut?
I think it's a misplaced term, and there are a lot of different definitions for what a sanctuary city is. There are things that Trump legally has the power to do, whether I like it or not, or anybody else likes it or not. And so, but by that same token, they can't impose. There's a legal term called commandeering, where they can't force us to do their jobs, and so where things stand in Connecticut is that it's totally appropriate for local municipalities and to have kind of don't ask, don't tell policies, where they, if an officer pulls somebody over in a car for running a red light or having a brake light out, it's perfectly fine for the municipality to have a policy that the officer doesn't ask for any documentation as to citizenship status, so that they don't know whether the person is an illegal alien or not. It's also appropriate that for local jurisdictions in the exercise of their local enforcement authority, if they don't want to entertain an ICE detainer and cooperate with ICE, they can do that. It's just that it's against federal law for whether it's the mayor or the chief of police or for the governor to say we are going to have a policy of not cooperating with the federal government. That violates federal law, and that's where you give Trump a hook. But if locally the police officers don't want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah, and where do you come into play with this? Say somebody is there's an illegal immigrant and they're about to be deported. Will you come into play and try to keep that person staying
I don't
here?
have any jurisdiction to take part in that. My only hook would be, from a legal standpoint, would be if we think that the Trump administration is exceeding its federal authority, and we could act on that basis.
Yeah. And I want to move into another issue that you have been working on in the past. Hackers are a big issue for lots of people and for kids like me. What do you think kids like me and adults around the state and the country can do to try to prevent people from being hacked? I know you've been working on this in the past.
It's really mostly about prevention. Once something's hacked, the fact of the matter is the hacker may well be in a foreign country, or they're almost certainly out of state, and you're not going to be able to get them. Be careful about what emails you open up. Have good secure passwords and change them, and just don't share your personal information with people.
And have you been going throughout the state and talking to kids to make sure they're not victims of this?
There have been occasions that I've done that, but it's not frequent. We do have the authority to investigate data breaches when they do occur, and Connecticut's a leader on that.
Yeah, and yesterday you just announced that you would not be that you're not going to try campaign to run for governor. You didn't announce if you would run for re-election yesterday. Do you think you're going to run for re-election in 2018 as the Attorney General?
Well, everyone knows that I really like my job. Under Connecticut law, if I say I'm going to be a candidate, then that triggers a whole set of legal restrictions on other things that it kind of controls my political activity going forward. So I need to be careful about what I say. So it's a conscious decision not to say I was running for a third term, and I can't rule anything out, but it's safe to say that I really like my job.
Yeah, why did you decide not to pursue a run for governor?
Several reasons. One, I really do like my current job, and if running for governor would tend to politicize whatever I do as Attorney General, I've really tried to build a brand that stresses that we interpret the law in a non-ideological way, that we play legal issues straight, and the issues that I choose to be part of, I do it because I believe in something, and I think people who wanted to be critical of me would say that what Jepsen is doing as Attorney General is only there to propel his own political ambition. So that was a significant factor in not running.
Yeah, and there have been many people that have decided to run for governor, and there are people that have just exploratory committees. Is there anybody that you like that is running or is thinking about running?
I have a number of friends who are. I'm very close to Nancy Wyman, for example, and so. It's going to be, I think, a really complex political environment next year.
Yeah, do you think the lieutenant governor will run for governor? Have you talked to her?
I have spoken to her. I think she's making up her mind. Okay. She isn't sure yet.
Yeah, I want to finish up with a few personal questions. Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, my principal hobby is cooking. I like to. I probably have 40 or 50 cookbooks, and I read recipes, and I'm always looking for new things to cook. I also like to putter around in our garden, mostly with flowers, and then I like hiking and exercise, walking, and we have 2 dogs and 2 cats, so I'm taking care of the pets.
And I want to finish up. A lot of people, Connecticut is really well known for its pizza restaurants.
Yes.
We ask this to everybody that we interview. Do you have a favorite pizza restaurant in the state of Connecticut?
I think in the Pepe's, Sally's fight, I think Sally's isn't in business anymore, but I like Sally's white clam pizza the most. Okay. I love Pepe's, and I think Modern is really just about as good as them. Yeah. I also know whenever I drive down the Merritt Parkway and going past Woodbridge, I always try and stop in Katz's Delicatessen. Yeah. Great stop. And
Mr. Attorney General, I want to thank you for coming on. I also want to thank his one of his communications staffers, Sam Carmody, and I want to thank my brother Sam and my dad John Anastasio. Thank you for watching us today, and if you haven't known, we just updated our website, ravingryan.com, if you want to go and check that out. Also, and if you're watching this on YouTube, go and check out our website. Make sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and to follow the Attorney General on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching. Reporting for Raving Ryan, I'm Ryan Anastasio.